One resolution dealt with free open source software as a means for saving money for the city. We all know that Bill Gates and Microsoft are the richest corporation in the world, and there's an enormous amount of money that goes into buying software for computers that goes to Bill Gates. And if we could use free open source software like Linux, there's no cost at all, and that would save all that money which goes to Microsoft. And the NPA did pass a resolution asking the City Council to look into that. Will you support that resolution when you're elected?
It makes perfect sense to me. I think that any way we can save money, especially in smart ways that also don't feed more profits into companies when there's free alternatives, I think that's the smart way to go about it. And I think the resolutions passed by NPAs is really an important part of the process. That should really be not a sole directive, but a serious consideration for any city councilor to really listen to what their boards are saying. So if any issue like that were to come up and a resolution go through the NPA, I would seriously consider, if not, try to really support that issue and make sure that I voiced that on the council and did what I could to move it forward. So this software piece definitely seems to make sense to me.
After we passed that resolution, we had a news conference where we discussed the NPAs, and the suggestion was made that when a resolution is passed by an NPA, it should go automatically onto the agenda for the City Council so that it could introduce a debate and a vote at the City Council. That would save having the necessity of one City Councilor introducing it separately.
Yeah.
Do you think that would be a good idea?
You know, I think it would, because it would, if it is going to streamline the process. I mean, the discussion would still happen on the City Council level. It would just help eliminate one unnecessary step. Because I think if we really are going to support the NPA system and the process in Burlington, which I think everyone really appreciates, that seems like a natural, step in kind of clarifying the process and making it easier for the communities to directly speak. And I think there might be a way for the city councilor from each ward to help present that once it's on the agenda, but I don't see it necessarily of having to make sure the councilor, be a middleman or a middlewoman between getting that resolution from the NPA meeting to the actual agenda. So it makes sense to me. I think that would help to further empower our neighborhoods. And I think when it was all created within CEDO and the community program, that was the real mission. And if we want to really wholeheartedly support that, I think we should really consider that, putting it right to the agenda.
That would give us real grassroots democracy. And some of our resolutions have actually fallen by the wayside and never were introduced.
And I think resolutions are really an opportunity to really make a statement as a city, and as the biggest city, as one of the more progressive communities in Burlington, we have an opportunity to kind of set the tone and be able to kind of make a statement on lots of different issues. And I think the City Council is a representative body, and we should be able to encourage more citizens to feel part of that process. And this, resolutions and putting it on the agenda would make sure that happened, rather than having any one or two city councilors, for whatever reason, be able to kind of be that gatekeeper and prevent that issue from being discussed because he or she doesn't personally like it or whatnot. It would actually make sure that topic got to at least the city leadership level.
There is a housing shortage in Burlington. Many people have advocated building more affordable Section 8 housing. Where do you stand on this issue?
I think that Burlington is going to continue to grow. It needs to grow. One of the things that's going to face Burlington in the next 10 years is just the bigger number of people retiring, and affordable housing is going to be a significant issue facing the aging population. And so this issue is only going to get more significant for the people who live in Burlington. So I definitely support growing more affordable housing. I think we need to look on a citywide level about where that could be placed, because here, not here physically, but when I'm in Ward 2, we have pretty high density. There's not a whole lot more we can do to develop more plots of land. So I think we need to be very smart about looking at the whole city where can more development happen in a smart and respectful way of the neighborhoods, but also realizing that, you know, if Burlington is going to be able to shoulder and support the aging population and the continual need of having decent, affordable housing, you know, the face of Burlington is probably going to change a little bit, and that's okay. I mean, some people resist change, but I think we need to keep in mind where we're heading, and so that we're not caught in a place where 10 years from now, because we didn't want to change or develop more affordable housing, we suddenly have further bigger issues of, you know, older people living outside the downtown central area and having difficulty getting into to get city services, or be able to get to, you know, a grocery store, or be able to walk to doctor's offices and whatnot. If we don't think strategically about where we're placing development and helping people kind of have access to more affordable places to live that's more central, we're going to see bigger issues down the road, and more strain on public transportation, and more strain on just individuals trying to be able to afford to live in Burlington, but having to face the issue that they live way out on the New North End and can't get into town, or all those other issues. So I think it's hand in hand, looking at affordable housing issues, but also building it into the vision of Burlington, and how can we, you know, make this work for more people.
The Section 8 situation is especially grievous. Much of the senior housing is supported by Section 8, and there's a 1 year or more waiting list at all of the senior housing complexes. So that means, and a senior can't apply until they reach the age requirement, and then they have to wait a year. So it cuts into significantly into their retirement. And if you want a Section 8 voucher, which allows you to go out and find your own apartment, it's over a 2-year wait. I think we need to build more housing to try to reduce those waiting periods, don't you?
Absolutely, because the other problem about Section 8, of course, is that it's based, the requirement or the eligibility levels, and a lot of those issues are controlled by the federal government in terms of, you know, making sure that people are able to even get into the program, let alone get on the waiting list. So in the least that Burlington can do is on a local level make sure there's more access to housing so that people can get into housing, and we can reduce the waiting list by having more options for people to, you know, more places physically for people to move into. So I wish that Burlington could also look at, you know, moving the federal government into a more realistic way of looking at eligibility, because the income level that they set is unrealistically low. It's based on old, antiquated ways of looking at poverty, and, you know, that's a whole other part that I think would help get more people the housing support that more people actually in reality need, to help mitigate the fact that we have rents that are really unaffordable. And if you make a little bit more than the eligibility level, that means then you have no support in helping to pay your basic housing costs. So, you know, whatever Burlington could do on that piece would be great, but, you know, the realistic piece is just putting more physical housing into the community so that we can get more people into decent housing that's affordable.
As you mentioned, the income limits are very low, but even these people who have this very low income, and everyone acknowledges they are entitled to Section 8 and they need it, they have to go on this waiting list and wait 2 years. In 2 years, someone can starve to death, someone can freeze to death on the street.
And I think the reality of when you look at why there isn't more development happening, I think there's some people in Burlington who don't want things to change, and I think it's important that we look at the exact reality that you know, elderly people are having to make tough choices, and at that point in their life, that no one should be faced with the decision of, am I going to be able to, you know, continue to afford the place I'm living, or do I have to make choices between paying for medicine or food? And if we as a community just made that much more, that story, that reality, much more public, I guess, or people more aware of that, I think we could start to build more community rather than just this NIMBY complex, not in my backyard, or this resistance to development just on the sake of, you know, I don't want the layout of Burlington to change. Well, the reality is that people are suffering unnecessarily by the city not being more proactive in how it's going to develop housing. And you know, sometimes the stories and the reality of people's real experiences gets lost in kind of people just being isolated in their own parts of the city. So I think we just really need to make clear that, you know, if we're going to be a great city, it needs to be a great city for all of us, not just for a couple people who, you know, can have the means to easily live in Burlington.